Now that Favela has been out for a few months, I think we're finally in a position where we can actually analyze the meta that's been established. And so in today's video, I'd like to talk a little bit about the playstyle that I've observed, the most effective strategies that I think apply to this map, as well as just general concepts for playing this. So with that established, let's go ahead and get right into it. So first things first, for playstyle, it's just aggressive, right? The one thing I've noticed consistently about this map is that you need to be aggressive, but if you want to win more consistently, you need to do it intelligently. So you can't just expect to Ash Rush and that'll win you the game. You can't expect to Amaro in and that'll win you the game. It might win you rounds if you catch the opponents off guard. Same thing with runouts. But if you really want to consistently win games, you've got to do it intelligently, and that means coordinating with your team, right? So this is not your typical heavy strategy map. You know, this is not a clubhouse where you have to bring hard breach every round. You have to know what you're doing. There's a distinct meta for how the defenders are going to play. You know where they're going to play. You know what they're going to do. You know how they're going to set up. This map is much more dynamic, and I think that makes it a lot more interesting to play, especially because you don't have to be worried about picking exact ops every single round, and you have to clear this utility and all that. I think that opens it a lot of opportunities to have a little bit more fun and flexibility in playing, but it also means you have to expect a lot more nonsense. And that is, even as someone who appreciates strategy, that's just what I've observed. That's just how this map plays. So how do you do that? First thing, a couple concepts for playstyle. You want to be aggressive and you want to be confident. So I would recommend, if you're going to play this map, you better have warmed up and feel good about your shot. And honestly, if you feel like you have an advantage gunfight, just take it. That's different than single swinging. I think it's important to note that. You don't want to just single swing. You don't want to be going crazy. But if you feel like you are in an advantage to take a gunfight, it couldn't hurt to take it. Now, even better than that, even better than confidence, is double swing, right? If you can coordinate with your team, whether that's you have a stack you're playing with, or your randoms are just making calls and coordinating, coordinate a double swing. That is, by and large, the most common and most effective way to make and take advantage gunfights. So double swing. And the third thing is use your drones, because there are a lot of rat spots, and given that this map is a lot less distinct and defined in the exact strategies both attackers and defenders are going to play, if you can use your intel to figure out where they are and figure out how to solve the problems that they're setting up for you, you're going to be in a really good position. Just make sure to check your rat spots. So with the playstyle out of the way, let's go over a bit about the meta as it is now, and then I'll explain some strategies to sort of leverage vulnerabilities in the meta. So first things first, it's very clear that the site selection that has been established is clearly second floor first, and then you go to first floor. And I'll talk a little bit about, in a moment, what I think the ideal site rotation is. But that's just how it is. So if you're on attack, expect them to go second floor first. Typically, the most common site is coin farm and storage. Then they'll go coin farm and bunks, and then they'll rotate to one of the downstairs sites. The attackers tend to typically push heavy red stairs, heavy trash stairs, and heavy storage side. That's from everything I've observed. You might see one or two people or one or two teams maybe taking advantage of the yellow and small office pushes, but typically it's going to be from these areas up here, right? These are the primary ones. On attack, expect them to go upstairs twice and then first floor. On defense, expect them to push trash, red, and storage. So now let's get into a little bit more about the strategies that I think work best for this map. So we'll start on defense, and I think the best thing to do is sort of establish a good site rotation. So as I see it, the first best site is coin farm and bunks. The second best is coin farm and storage. And then the third best site is down on the first floor, and it is pink. It is the pink apartment / pink kitchen site. And so I'm going to outline a strategy for each of these sites. It's really only two strategies, because the upstairs site works for both, or the upstairs strategy works for both upstairs sites, and then one downstairs strategy, as well as just talking about generally principles that you might want to apply. And then we'll go into attacking strategies for each of the three sites. So let's start with the upstairs site, right? So first things first, let's go over how we can reinforce to protect this site, right? First thing you want to do on any defense is use reinforcements to the best of your ability and then add in operators and utility. So we're going to start out with reinforcing the AK wall. We're going to reinforce the hacker wall. We're going to reinforce the right side of the hacker wall into storage. We're going to reinforce the left side of hacker into bunks. We're going to reinforce these two walls on the left side of the door from bunks into coin, and then the left panel of the wall from bunks into coin on the right side of the door. Now just going into why of each of these reinforcements and the rotates, right? Because if you don't understand why, then there's really no point in doing it. Starting off, the AK walls, that's pretty self-explanatory, right? If defenders don't have this reinforced, then the attackers can blow it up and walk right in, and the default plan is typically right here on this wall for the storage and coin site. So you want to reinforce that to make it cost something. Just in general on defense, your goal is always to make it cost something for attackers to take map control. The next reinforcement is on the hacker wall. And this is for a similar reason. You don't want attackers just to be able to walk down red, blow up this wall, and then have lines of sight that sort of cut off all the connecting areas of the defense where we're playing. So it just provides a safe space in hacker where you can play. Now based off of those two, the reason we've reinforced the right side of the hacker wall into storage is because it denies the line of sight from the storage window into hacker. And if you make a rotate on the left side, then you can easily rotate in between hacker and storage, and you're protected even if they get storage window and storage wall open. Over here on the other side of hacker, we've reinforced the left panel because that denies the line of sight from bunks rappel into hacker. And same thing, you want hacker to be protected because it's sort of a core rotation area where you can play. I've left this side soft because if you make footholds here, you can sort of deny the deep bunks walk in, and that's useful, especially as a player in hacker. The two walls from bunks into coin farm are reinforced for a similar reason. This specifically, you don't want players from small offs being able to get this angle, and you don't want players from top yellow being able to get this angle, right? It's basically to just make sure you have playable protected areas in coin. And the final reinforcement that we've used over here is the same concept. You want to make sure your playable areas are protected. And what I've elected to do here is reinforce one panel and then have a rotate on the other. And with that, the reason for that is because there's only one door right here between sites. So you can only rotate right here between sites. And so having a rotate here means you have another lane you can rotate. So if you're being pressured, there's not one specific funnel point where attackers know you're going to have to go through if you're being pushed out or pushed in. So having this other secondary lane of rotation provides a little bit of flexibility and unpredictability as a defender. And then having the reinforcement there means it's protected. They can't just wallbang you. So now let's get into the operator selection. So first things first, this is based on the idea that attacker is going to be pushing down red, maybe pushing up yellow, pushing into storage, and pushing down trash, right? Those are just the common attacking points that I've observed. And I think there's a good reason you can use those effectively, but if you funnel them, then they're a lot less effective, right? If they can't go anywhere else through these routes, then it's a lot more dangerous for the attackers to push that. And so we want to leverage that. And the way I've elected to do that through this operator selection is first off through a castle, right? With a castle barricade, what it means is that attackers don't just have a free passageway through certain doors and windows or free lines of sight, right? So let's look at the castle barricades. First one we've got here is on the trash door. And this means that attackers can't just run down or up trash stairs and straight into coin. They have to either clear this remotely, or if it's a sledge or someone with a breaching charge, they have to come up right here. And that means that this funnel that's already sort of there is now heightened. Its effect is magnified because you can have a player playing in coin farm controlling this funnel, and with the castle barricade there, it's a lot stronger. It's a lot more advantageous for the defender. Okay, the next castle barricade is going to be on the bunks door from yellow. And this is the same thing, right? You don't want attackers to be able to just rush up yellow stairs and run right into bunks. Not only does that mess up your bunks player, but it also means that they would have a line of sight from bottom red into bunks. So you deny this line of sight, you deny this passageway. It's just good for the attackers, or good for the defenders, bad for the attackers. More so, it means if they're going to come up yellow and try to push in here, they have to cross the Jaeger's line of sight, right? You got a line of sight from the Jaeger on here. So you deny this free rotate, Jaeger has a lot more time to react and kill this player. The third castle barricade is going to go on the small office door. Similar concept. You don't want players just hopping in small office and running right into sight. Or in case where this is sight, you don't want them running right into bunks. It also provides sort of a trapping effect, right? If they hop in, then they're stuck until they clear this castle barricade or they hop out. And that allows the bunks player to just hop up on this little desk vault right here and sort of shoot like fish in a barrel, as long as you're smart. Probably the safer bet is to use a nitro, given that this is confined space and attackers will be expecting this vault. But if the nitro doesn't work, or if you're confident in your shot, you could also play this desk vault. The fourth and final castle barricade is going to go on the storage window. Now, again, the software isn't updated with the fact that castle now has 4 barricades. So just pretend that it's there. But the reason I've put it here is because it denies this line of sight from outside on the storage balcony into storage. So it means you can play in storage for a little bit longer. Now the important thing to note, a castle barricade on an external window is always pretty easy to clear, right? You can breach charge it, you can sledge it, you could even melee it pretty safely. Most people aren't going to want to melee it, and so what it means is that attackers are more likely going to be using utility or something to clear this castle barricade. So even if it's easy to clear, it's going to cost them something, and that is just a generally good defensive principle, is you want it to cost the attackers something. And the goal, again, of those castle barricades is to funnel players in. So knowing that, I wanted to make those funnels a little bit stronger. So the next 2 ops we did are a Smoke and a Goyo. Smoke because he has a deployable shield and area denial, and then Goyo because he has 2 deployable shields and his deployable shields are area denial. So first thing, Smoke will have his deployable shield set up on the coin farm door watching trash. Now you want to have this offset behind the door because not only does that make space for ADSs to protect the shield, but there's also a vertical angle you can get from top trash down in through the coin farm door. And you want to have it just back enough where they can't really shoot you behind the shield. So with the castle barricade here and the shield, now is the Smoke, you can play behind the shield. You can see when they're in this funneled area, and then you can just quick peek and pre-fire. So that really strengthens the effect of this funneling here. Now for the Goyo shields, we've got 1 shield on the red hall. And again, this is basically just doing the same thing that the trash shield does, just doing it for red hall. You put it right next to the door leading into storage, and that means someone can sit right here and they can control and contest people not only at top yellow, but also on bottom red. More so with this shield here, if it does get destroyed, having this rotate that's protected, they can just fall back. And, you know, if they wanted to, they can continue to play this aggressively, but it just provides an easy sort of protected way of controlling this line of sight. And the final Goyo shield is over here on bunks, and it's protecting this rotate over here, right? So you put it right on the rotate. You want the outer hard part that's not going to explode when you shoot it facing either the bunks door or the small office door. And again, that just means were they to get small office control, were they to get top yellow control, you have a protected little area of fortress, so to speak, where you can come through this rotate, play on the shield, and again, just contest these people safely. So the next operator we have is, again, just built on this idea of strengthening our control of these funneled points. So we have a Jaeger, and this is pretty self-explanatory. You almost always want a Jaeger, oh my. So we've dedicated 2 ADSs to the shield on coin farm watching trash, and 1 ADS under Harry Potter to the red shield. And the reason I've chose to do this is I feel like, from my observations at least, trash is more commonly pushed. And red typically doesn't see a lot of utility clear, so you need less utility soak to counter it. Of course, this is highly dynamic. If your team is facing a different situation, you can obviously rotate the ADSs. Now, one thing to note is that there's sort of this debate over Jaeger versus Omai, whether you're setting up something like this. I chose Jaeger because I feel like he has really easy set and forget utility that works well for this strategy, meaning he doesn't have to, you know, if he were Omai, he could play this position and throw some discs here for himself, but you're also going to want discs over here from Smoke, or for Smoke. So the Omai would have to sort of multitask, run back and forth, and you'd have to cross this doorway, and assuming there's trash pressure and storage pressure, it's just a lot going on and a lot to multitask. So I think Jaeger works better for this specific site. And the final op is the Mute. Now the reason I went for Mute over Cade is A, Cade gets banned a lot. Not always, but you can always run, well, not always, I should say this. This strategy will 90% of the time be okay and unaffected by bans. None of these ops are commonly banned. The other reason I chose Mute is because in addition to providing wall denial, he also provides some information denial. Now, his wall denial is a little bit weakened after his nerf, but I still think he's overall pretty good. So we want one jammer on the AK wall, obviously to deny that. They can clear it eventually, but at least waste time, waste some utility. The other Mute jammer is going to be on the hacker wall. Same reason, we just want to protect that from easy hard breach. This is pretty vital. You don't want it to be easy for them to do this. Now the other two are used to deny intel. The first one goes on the castle barricade facing bottom trash. This prevents it from having drones be able to drive in here really easily and see what's going on. And it also contests some of the gadgets that could be used to clear this castle barricade. The final jammer is used for the same reason on the bunks castle barricade. All right, so now let's go in a little bit about where I've positioned the operators. And this is extremely dynamic, so take this just as loose guidelines. The two things that are fundamental to this strat are you do want the smoke in this position, contesting the garbage lane, and you also want the Jaeger or someone contesting the red lane from behind that shield. Everyone else is pretty much a little bit more flexible, and they can move around a little bit. I've positioned one player in bunks, again, assuming that you're going to go bunks first and then storage, as I think that's stronger. You want at least one player sort of over in storage, and then you probably want one player sort of flex. I've positioned the Goyo on his shield, that can be subject to change. But the two players that are circled, you pretty much want them in position during the whole round to be actively watching these lanes. You probably want one in bunks at all time if that's your first site. If it's storage, you probably want one in storage at all times, probably playing stack. And then the other two are just going to sort of rotate and support wherever the push is coming from. Okay, so that is my strategy for the second floor site. And I believe you can use it for both sites. It works pretty well as long as you know how to rotate your people, how to read the push and all that. And overall, I do believe the meta was correct. Originally, I had predicted that these two were going to be the strongest sites. And I think we've just seen that because the first floor sites are subject to all this vertical pressure that you can apply, and it's just generally uncomfortable. Now, I am going to provide one first floor site strategy. So I think the best site on first floor is pink and kitchen over the blue and green apartments, because with blue and green, you're subject to a lot of external pressure that basically hits right onto site. Right? You've got this window in Tetris, you've got the bathroom hop in, you've got these windows in Yellow Hall, you've got laundry, you've got weed, there's a lot you have to contest. Whereas with pink, the only direct external access to site is through this window. And you might see people come down yellow and try to come through there, maybe come through the weed window. But there's a lot less you have to contest, and you can focus your defense a lot more. Now, with that in mind, you definitely want to extend on this site, because if you look, there are not playable areas for 5 people in this site. Absolutely not. And more so, even if there were playable areas, there's all this vertical pressure you have to contest. So the question becomes, do you extend vertically or horizontally? Because typically it's a diametric. You have to choose one or the other. You can't do both. Only a select few sites can you do that. And I'll propose that there are sort of a couple conditions that'll help you determine whether you want to extend vertically or horizontally. For my stack, we do have a sort of secondary strategy for this site, and that relies heavily on us feeling really confident in our shot and working well together as a team. If you are doing that, it's probably a little bit more advantageous to extend vertically and roam heavily. But we only do that when we've won the first 2 sites and we've won them pretty well. And then we'll run, sort of like a Vigil Mute Mozzie combination to support the roam. And that prevents attackers from really using any of this powerful vertical pressure. So that is a heavy vertical extension. Now the one that I've actually notated here, I think is better in general, in terms of more flexibility. You don't have to rely as much on gunning to win the round using this strategy. And it is the complete opposite. It is a heavy horizontal extension. So what I've elected to do is take this site and sort of expand the defense so that in addition to site, you maintain control of most of the first floor. And what that allows you to do is sort of move around the vertical pressure that the attackers are applying, right? Even if they apply complete vertical pressure to pink and you can't play in pink, you still have all this area you can play in. You still have all this area you can test the attackers in. And more so, if you play it well, you could even sort of expand outside of here if you know that it's heavy vertical pressure. You know, there's only 5 of them. They can only be in so many places. So if they're applying heavy vertical pressure, that means you probably have a lot more room you can extend horizontally and just get out of their lines of sight. So that's sort of the principle with this strategy. Anyway, let's again go into the reinforcements, the operator lineup, and then sort of where we expect things to go. First things first though, I expect attackers to push heavily down yellow stairs, down trash, and the most heavy will be a vertical take, especially if you're not extending it at all. They're going to just see that, they're going to take second floor and apply vertical heavily. So knowing that, we want to reinforce off the 2 panels from bottom trash into foosball. We want to reinforce the 2 panels next to laundry. We want to reinforce the middle panel from master into Tetris. And then we want to reinforce the 4 panels over here next to pillar and 1 panel from kitchen into weed. So these panels up here next to foosball are pretty self-explanatory, right? You don't want people from bottom trash be able to just blow open this line of sight and then contest you from all these different angles into foosball and Tetris. You want to have that protected. You want to be safe there. Same thing with these reinforcements down here next to pillar. You don't want people to be able to just walk down yellow stairs, blow open this, and then have a line of sight directly into your defense. And I think it's also pretty self-explanatory for this third set over here on laundry hall. You know, say they just hop in trash window or something, rush here. You don't want them to be able to split your extension in half by getting this wall open. These two aren't as self-explanatory. This one is here because not only does it deny the line of sight from weed window into kitchen, but it also means if you place a rotate here, you have a lot more flexibility from where you can go into kitchen. And I do think you want multiple rotates in and out of kitchen. So we've elected to place 1 from kitchen to engine and 1 from kitchen to weed, meaning that if they're playing heavy vertical pressure on this, you have multiple exits. And reinforcing this just sort of protects the rotate, means you can play on it and contest people coming into weed and whatnot. And then the final reinforcement that we've used is this middle one. Same principle. We have multiple rotates because depending if they're playing from engine window or, you know, foosball door, whatnot, even from bathroom, one of these rotates is typically better than another for escaping the line of sight, depending on where they're shooting from. And the middle reinforcement just protects the rotate, means you can sort of play on it and contest. So that's broad view of the site setup. In terms of operator selection, we've done a very similar thing where we want to create funnels and then sort of support the extensions that we're doing. So with the castle, because we are running a castle again, the first barricade we've done is placed it on the bottom yellow door. This just means, again, you don't have to worry about people taking yellow and running straight into sight. The next castle barricade isn't highlighted here, again, because there's no door and this doesn't have a 4th panel, but it's going to be on the foosball door. Same thing as the yellow. This means people can't just rush into trash and immediately hit the foosball player. You know, perhaps there's still sight being set up. It just protects those from easy early rushes. The third castle barricade is going to be on the yellow hall door, bottom yellow hall next to pillar. And what this does is it protects the flank, so to speak. You know, if they come down yellow, they could probably crouch walk up this hallway. And then if these players aren't expecting it, it'd be easy for them to shoot through this door, you know, well, shoot through or walk through and then shoot through this door and just sort of apply an easy, unexpected flank. So we want to deny that. We want to provide protection to our extended players. And the final castle barricade is going to go in between foosball and engine. And what this does is it assumes that you're going to give up these areas first and then sort of fall back into engine. And if you do that, it means that you can give up foosball without worrying about a safe fallback into engine because you've got this line of sight protected from foosball through this door. Again, it's going to be easy to clear, sort of like the storage window castle barricade. They can clear it, but it's going to cost something, and it provides you a little bit of protection while it's in place. So those are our castle barricades. Next thing that we've done is sort of chosen to protect some key reinforcements. On this site, I've chosen Cade. He might be banned, he might not. You can get away with a mute or a bandit, but I think Cade works better because you can get some rat spots up in the floor panels for both of these claws. And again, I've chosen to place both claws on these 4 walls because I think this is where most people go for hard breach. You know, if you were just seeing this blueprint as an attacker, you'd probably want to go for this, honestly, because that cuts the extension in half. But most people aren't going to be able to do that. And again, even as a Cade, you have a choice. You could put some denial there, or as a mute, you could do 1 here, 1 here, 1 here. A little bit up to you, but I think Cade works best specifically for defending these 4 reinforcements because of the spots you can get your claws in. Next, we have a smoke, and the smoke choice is a little bit different than the one for the upstairs extensions. We want the smoke to be able to waste time and deny attackers from pushing in through the funnels we've created. But this is a little bit different. You know, typically you'll have a smoke on site, but here we have a roaming smoke, and this is honestly a very specific play style that I've taken from Pro League. And what you do is you run smoke FMG9, and then you use your smokes pretty aggressively. And what that allows you to do is waste a lot of time early on when the attackers are first trying to push, and hopefully deal a lot of damage, maybe get some picks. And it means that as the smoke player, you know your goal isn't to prevent the plant. You're much more interested in preventing the push and just wasting time maintaining map control. So it's a pretty aggressive play style, but I think it works well for this map, and specifically this site. The 4th thought we've done is the Wamai, and you know, there was that whole debate about Wamai versus Jaeger, which do you do? I think for this site, Wamai is just a little bit better. You know, you want probably 1 or 2 discs helping the roamers out here. But other than that, you probably want the rest of them stacked close to site. That way when the execute is rearing up to happen, you have a lot of utility just ready to go. And you protect yourself from any sort of capital bolt, you know? Because in this position, Wamai is able to stack utility basically across the whole site. You know, specifically for himself in Weed, but also some for the rest of Pink. And the final operator is Echo. And we chose Echo to give some information to the roamers because you can have him pretty protected in kitchen, just on cams with a yokai out supporting the roamers, providing intel. And then another yokai in sight, ready for plant denial. So just briefly, Echo will have his deployable shield in either this position or this position. Depends on where Smoke puts his. So Echo and Smoke will choose one of these positions and place their shield, and then the other person will put theirs there. And what these 2 shields do, the first is sort of multi-purposed, right? You place it on the left side of kitchen double if you're looking from kitchen into Pink. And what it allows you to do is have a little bit of protection from the yellow door and also from the Pink window. So you can sort of contest both. And then the other shield allows Wamai to sort of contest Weed window and anyone that pushes into Weed and have a little bit of a protected rotation back. So the way you want to play this is basically just like any other heavy roam extension. You know, we're covering all this map control. The attackers are only going to push so many places at once. So you want to make sure that if you're holding map control, you're able to leverage it effectively. Right? If you look at this, there's essentially 2 groups of players playing directly together, and then a connector, right? Castle's the connector here. So you've got this extended roam. Cade and Smoke are basically just trying to do their best to waste as much time as possible for the attackers if they try to push them out of this Tetris and football area. On the other hand, Echo and Wamai are trying to maintain site control, right? Wamai is trying to make sure that no one comes through Weed, and Echo is, you know, providing intel or contesting these 2 positions. Castle is the connector. Castle should be able to play knowing that if these guys are here and these guys are here, then he's able to play anywhere in between those 2 and support whoever needs help the most. So he needs to be really flexible and able to rotate well. And that also brings another principle. You know, this setup assumes they're going to push a certain way. They might not push that way. So you need to be able to read that and adapt. You know, specifically, if no one's pressuring Weed, it makes no sense for Wamai to just sit here behind the shield holding an angle. You know, but if they are pushing over by Engine and Football, what he could do is just sneak out, come into Laundry Hall, and then pepper some shots down here. You know, there's a way where you can crouch walk here get right up behind these laundry machines without the attackers ever being able to see you, and then just pepper shots down here, and you're pretty protected. Overall, though, the way that you're supposed to play this is to waste time and then fall back. It is much better to lose a little bit of map control, but keep your life than to probably lose your life trying to keep the map control and not end up keeping it anyway. But that does bring the most central point of this strategy to under observation, right? The only point in keeping all this map control is if it's going to allow you to win the round, right? If they're playing heavy vertical, they push everyone out of pink. Then you have to be able to use this map control and use the way it's set up to keep winning the round, even if you can't play in pink. That is the only point to extending this heavily, right? If you keep all this map control and just allow them to get pink for free, get a plan off in here, then there was no point in doing this. You would have been better off extending vertically. So that sort of ties in with the central play style of this map, which is just playing aggressively. If they're all playing upstairs and focus so heavily on pink, you can probably just tear this barricade down, run out, and play like a little rat in pillar, and watch if anyone tries to come down yellow. Same thing, honestly, with bottom trash. You know, if they're focused so heavily on that, you probably tear this one down, maybe try for a flank up trash stairs. You just have to be able to read that. All right, now let's look at some attacking strategies. So in general, I'm not going to prevent specific strategies because this meta is very unique, and that again, you know, on Clubhouse, there's a very specific expected defense you can go up against every time. You expect certain things to be reinforced, certain rotates to exist when you're playing CC. The favela defense meta just isn't like that. It's a lot more unpredictable, and while there are general trends you can observe, it isn't uniform. You can expect this every time. So what I've done here is sort of presented different roles and different concepts on attack, and I'll sort of explain how those apply to the 3 sites on attack that you'll likely face. So first things first, for this attacking lineup, you want at least one hard breacher. I've chosen Ace because he has ranged hard breach, also has fantastic gun. You'll want likely 2 soft destructors, one with nades, or someone with nades. So what I've done is made them both soft destructors and chosen Sledge because nades are super powerful. And then Buck because not only can he play vertical down to bottom, but he can also play bottom up. And that's really powerful when a majority of this floor is going to be soft destructible, you know, especially given that the second floor sites are what you expect to play first. If you're able to play bottom up and do it intelligently in a way that helps your team, you're going to put your team in a significant advantage. The third op that I've chosen is some sort of flank watch. I like Zero. I think he's underutilized. The only thing is you have to, you know, be intelligent about when you're on cams versus when you're on gun, because it is passive flank watch as opposed to a nomad. But I think he brings a lot of kit to the team. You know, 4 cams, 2 hard breach, Gon 6, pretty solid and really good gun. And then finally we have Capitao. And Capitao is just really good at area denial. So this is sort of like your flex pick right here. However you want to implement your attacks. I've chosen to go with this lineup for a sort of area denial, push people out of the way style attack. You know, this could also be a Ying or something like that. Or you could just do a typical default attack with, you know, like an Ashe, Zoff, something like that. With the attacking roles and the specific ops in place, I'm going to explain how I think you're best off attacking. So again, let's just outline the default attacking routes that people tend to take. Primary one is easily by far and away red stairs, trash, and storage. But you also see people yellow and trash, or yellow in office. I don't think that these avenues are inherently bad. They're the meta for a reason. I do think that they aren't always used well. So let's just assume, first things first, we'll just go site by site. So these apply to the 2 upstairs sites. Let's talk about attacking storage and coin farm first, since that's the most common. The default plant spot is right here. For obvious reason, you just breach, you walk in, you're pretty protected, and the post plan is insane. You know, you can go on all sorts of crazy repels and angles and hold this diffuser from outside. So that's pretty self-explanatory. So if we're going to do that, let's look at what the defenders can do to stop us from doing that, and then how we can counter them. right? So there's an angle from trash onto this walk-in. There's an angle from coin farm onto the walk-in. There is the stack angle. And actually, you know what? I'll go ahead and make these different colors just for the sake of clarity, right? So you got this trash angle, you got the coin farm angle, you got the stack angle or nitro throw, whatever you want to do. And then it's possible that someone's going to be playing in storage, but very unlikely, right? So these are the angles you have to worry about when you're contesting the site. Now, as an attacker, with this specific lineup, what can we do about that, right? Generally, this is what you can expect. Here's what I propose, right? You have the ace go outside storage wall along with buck. You have the sledge and the zero plan to go top trash. And then you have the capital play on storage window. And here's why I think that's effective, right? First things first, you need the hard breacher to breach the hard wall. That should be self-explanatory. The reason buck goes with them is because if there's denial on the wall, which there likely will be, it's pretty easy for ace to just drone buck in this little showers area on the first floor, play below, get the denial, and then rotate away. However, I think if you wanted to do something a little more impactful, you have the buck go below, clear the denial, and then what he can do is come in, go below, and play vertical here and here. And right away, that makes your stack player and the player in coin farm on the storage door a lot more wary about trying to contest the planner, right? It's a lot more uncomfortable for them to contest that if they're standing on broken wood. The next thing we're going to do is have sledge and zero come top trash, right? There's this strong angle from the second floor trash stairs onto this default plant. Anyone with a nitro or a decent bit of gun skill can contest people walking in here. But if you have people top trash that are able to play vertical, then you deny this right away, right? They just cannot play this angle if you have vertical pressure covering this middle trash area. And then finally, I have the capital and storage window. And this is sort of just a fill in the gaps, double check everything type of positioning. Because with his fire and his smokes, even if the buck gets picked off or doesn't play the vertical below, he can fire off this door and fire off stack. So it's just a redundancy to prevent these positions. More so, with his smokes, he can deny these lines of sight with a smoke so the default planner can come in and get the plant off. So that is in general like broad strokes type of problem solving that you could use with this specific attacking lineup on this site. Now let's do the same thing for the other site, right? Again, red stairs, yellow stairs, trash. And even for the bunk site, most people will still push in storage. I'm not sure how advantageous that is. For this site, the easiest plant spot from the outside is to just swing in and plant right here, behind the bunks. So again, we'll just look at what can defenders do to prevent you from doing that. First thing, if there's anyone in bunks, they can just shoot you. Pretty self-explanatory. And same thing, if there's anyone in small office, they can also contest that line of sight. The other two are a little less obvious here. Anyone on top yellow or red can contest you. And then if there's feet holes in bunk or in hacker, like we've done in our defenses, they can also likely deny you from swinging in if they're playing a rat prone angle. And the final way that they can deny this plant is, you know, outside of an Echo or Maestro, is sort of a amazing nitro toss through the storage door from coin farm. So these are the ways that they could deny this plant. Now again, using our attacking lineup, what can we do to make these uncomfortable for the defender or counter them? So first things first, let's get our planner in position. In this case, I think it should be 0. Let's get our sledge in position here. And I'll explain this a little bit more briefly. I think you should use a red stairs down push. All right, I think ace and Zoff, not ace and Zoff. I think ace and sledge should come down red stairs and try to get this wall open. If you breach this wall, that immediately denies this angle in hacker. If you're able to breach the wall. Now it's likely that there will be denial on here. And so for two reasons, again, sort of the same thing that Buck was doing last round. I think you have Buck go below. And then what he's able to do is not only clear this denial and help out with that push, but additionally, he can play vertical on this whole position right here. You know, doing the same thing he was doing with the other attack, where he plays from below and denies defenders comfortable positioning. I will speak briefly on this red stairs push. If there is someone contesting it, it's going to be uncomfortable, and it's better off not risking your life and not pushing down this than just getting this wall open, right? If you are experiencing heavy resistance to trying to just push down this enough to get the wall open, I wouldn't push it. That being said, if you are able to do this, you don't need to take the whole red hall. All you need to do is come down enough where you can get the breach off, and then where you can deny people playing top yellow from getting this angle in on the planter. So taking red hole denies this and denies this. And the buck going below does, denies that, denies that. The only thing you have left now is this small office angle. And I think Capitao works perfectly to contest this, right? Not only do all you need to do is just play from this window to contest this small office angle, but if you actually are able to take this map control and hop in, then even if buck fails, again, sort of with Capitao working as a backup for the buck, you can use your fire to deny this, deny the same thing here, here, or here. And again, smokes to deny the lines of sight. And that allows Zero to safely swing in and get the plant off and play the post plant. So that is just general concepts. Obviously, it's not going to be that easy. I think it's important to note that if you want to go for this style of execute, you're likely going to want to have your Zero. The zeros would probably be the IGL or the planner, whoever's going to be on this rappel and going for the plant. Even if it isn't the Zero, if you decide to switch up ops, switch up roles, whatever. That should be your primary IGL, because essentially they're just going to be either on drones, passively holding a rappel, or if they don't have any more cams, they don't have any more cams, they can't be droning and calling the push, then they're going to have to be really good at reading when they should peek and play aggressive on this rappel versus when they shouldn't. Because if they die and drop the defuse, it's going to be really inconvenient for anyone to rotate and get it and then get in another position to plant. So I'll just make that note. All right, and the final attacking strategy that we'll go over. So assuming that they go pink, that's what I've seen historically, and I think that is the right choice. Typically attacking teams will come down trash, come down yellow, and then apply heavy vertical pressure. And the default plant is right here. Basically, you can walk in from weed, you get this protected area behind the fridge here, and the only people that can test that walk in is from bottom yellow. So with that in mind, let's look at what the defenders can do here to prevent us from getting this default plant off, because I do think this is a good default plant and for a reason. So as we've already mentioned, playing bottom yellow, you get the angle onto the walk-in. Pretty self-explanatory. The other thing you can do is if there's anyone playing behind this couch, same sort of thing, or this door. And this sort of final denial step you could take is in this kitchen area. There's actually a gap between the ceiling and the top of the wall here, so you might be able to get a nitro across. And these are the primary areas we deny this plant, assuming they're not, holding weed. But we'll just, for the sake of argument, we'll assume that they do. So what is attackers can we do about this to try to make our attack effective? First things first, I think you want Capitao and Rappel. And then I think you want Sledge and Ace to sort of push in this hallway area. And then Buck and Zero to try and take weed. And now I know it's a bit counterintuitive, especially with all this soft destruction, to not play vertical at all. But I really like strategies where you take the conventional idea, you take what the defenders are expecting you to do, and you flip it so that you leverage how they're playing based on how they expect you to play, and you find the weak spots in it. So playing vertical is completely viable here if you're able to do it right. You can, if you're able to take second floor and deny these areas playing vertical, you can probably get a plan off. So I'm not really going to explain specifically how you would do that. This is just an alternative. So alternatively, if you wanted to approach this from sort of an off meta, so to speak, way, here is how you would do it, right? If you have a Capitao and Rappel, then right away you can fire off this door, fire off this door, and anyone playing sort of behind the couches area. Yeah, obviously not all three at once, but if you gather intel, you can figure out which ones are going to be more effective for you to fire off and smoke off to prevent lines of sight and such. More so, even without your fire, you have an LMG. You can just lay down covering fire. In order for that to work, obviously, you need to have weed. And so I think you have two people just either contest this window or try to push in from bottom trash, whichever is going to be easiest and more effective. You're gonna have to drone that out, try to read the defense a little bit. But if you have Buck and Zero here, then they're going to be able to take Weed. And I think you have Buck here because there is a hatch right above this spot where defenders can deny this walk-in. So if you see someone playing that, it's going to be really easy for Buck to just hop out, go to office window, and then I'll actually show it. Right? If you're in office on this hatch, all you need to do is just play from this window, and then they can't comfortably play this hatch anymore. You don't even need to take it. You don't even need to hop in. You can literally just open the window and contest the angle. I do think you want some pressure bottom yellow. You know, you're going to need to clear this guy because none of the other players at this point can prevent this angle from being contested other than, you know, maybe smoking off right here and denying that line of sight. Alternatively, other than smoking it, I think you have the sledge and the ace, find one of these windows, maybe the bathroom, you know, whatever's not being contested, they can just hop in there, take this map control, and then try to breach this wall. You know, if they're able to breach this wall and play on the pillar, they can deny yellow and they can help deny the rest of these areas. So that is just, you know, broad overview, broad strokes, some principles you could use to attack this site. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this video. You know, it was fun for me to make, sort of sharing my ideas on strategy and defense and attack and how you break down those problems. And overall, I would say the one thing you need to know about playing this map is just learn the minigames. Reaper EN has this mental model of each round where each round is just a sequence of minigames that you play. You know, his classic example is on Consulate, at least at a pro league level. For every CEO attack, one of the minigames you play is taking yellow stairs. You know, you have to clear all the ADSs, clear anyone playing there, clear the shield, all that stuff. That is one minigame, and you tie a bunch of minigames together to take map control, eliminate players, and eventually win the round. So if you can just learn the Favela minigames and how to play them, then you're going to be very well off, very well equipped to play effectively. And again, I think those minigames are on defense, contesting red stairs, trash stairs, storage, and possibly yellow and small office. Generally speaking, these are just the minigames you're going to play. And then on attack, you want to be able to take storage, take trash, and probably take red. Those are the primary ones, and just learning how to read the defense and be flexible. So I hope this video was useful. I hope you were able to learn something and can apply it to your Favela games.